Hey guys, DJ here at Top Tech Cards and Games. Today I'm going to do a deck profile for Alice's World Refrain Reflect. This is a pretty popular deck already, though I do think there are enough little differences in my list that it's worth taking a look at. First, let's just start off with the stone base. It is a green, white, blue deck, but it's got some pretty hefty color requirements. So because of this, we have 4 copies of Magic Stone of Moonshade, 4 copies of Ruler's Memoria, and then 1 each of Gusting Skies and Deepwood. Obviously, this deck is super weak to Split Heaven and Earth, but if our game plan goes well, our clock is fast enough that I'm not worried about what any other deck in the format can do damage-wise. Our ruler is Reflect, Shadow Potential with Refrain, Shadow of whatever it is on the backside. We'll find out what it actually is for you guys. Shadow of Convergence. What's so important about this ruler in this deck is that it lets us cycle through a card every single turn, basically, letting us draw a card and then put one on the bottom of our deck, which will let us really speed through our deck very quickly to find the combo pieces we need. Then on the flip side, it can remove counters from itself to search any card in your deck, which is going to let us keep taking turns with Alice's World because we're just going to keep playing them. Let's get into the list itself so we can kind of explain where we're going with this. First off, we have 4 copies of Elvish Priest and 4 copies of Wind Sprite. Mana dorks are super important in this deck. Having both of these maximizes the number of turn 3 kills this deck has. By turn 3 kill, I don't mean actually killing your opponent on the 3rd turn, but you're going to keep taking turns at that point and kill them before they've had a 4th turn. It might take 5 or 6 turns total, but you will kill them before they have 4 turns. But these just maximize the number of ways we can do that, as well as maximizing the number of ways that we can play turn 2 gwiber. Next up, we have the best card for digging through our deck, 4 copies of Cheshire Cat. Coupled with Morgiana, this is just the best card selection engine in the game. It lets us basically look at our top 6, look at our top 3 2 separate times, pick the card we want the most, and then we put a card back on top. Coupled with Reflect's draw ability, we can do that, so we get through 6 cards that way, put one back on top, then go through the next 3, so we've gotten through a total of 8 unique cards, and then put one on the bottom from all the cards that we had in our hand. This means that the crap card that we didn't want, especially, is gone forever, and we've gone through 8 total cards to pick what we want. And that is absolutely insane. Morgana, just with Reflect alone, is also a great card selection, just giving us the go through our top 3, put a card from our hand on the bottom is a very strong ability. Next up, we have 4 copies of Perceval. Perceval is important because it's a separate type, and we already have to play Regalias so that our Ruler's Memorias come into play untapped. Change the World, the Refrain Reflect Regalia, is super relevant in this deck to let us get up to enough counters to take a million turns before our opponent has a chance to really stabilize the game. And just finding our Regalias can actually be very, very relevant. It also is important because it gives us another use for the white mana from Wind Sprite. The white mana itself isn't very relevant in this deck. All it really taps for is Perceval and Gwiber, but I think that's good enough. Next, we have 4 copies of Unfathomable. This might not actually need to be a 4 of, to be honest. This might get cut for the 4th Gwiber that I had in here before, because this card has been underperforming pretty radically for me. This card has Incarnate, though, and it does something different for every different attribute incarnated for it. It can sack any type at once for the Incarnate, but so the effects we have in this deck are the white, green, and black abilities. For green, it just produces any color of will that we want. The blue ability just draws a card, and for white, it gains 400 life. Every ability has been relevant in a different point for me, and this is another card that helps us make sure we can play a Gwiber on turn 2. Which is good. I mean, this is incredibly good if we don't have a mana dork in letting us still play a Gwiber turn 2, which we play 3 copies of Gwiber, which is something that I'm not sure is correct. 4 has been good for me, but I ended up cutting one for a copy of Sendback, which I will explain in a little bit. But Gwiber is just really the backbone of our deck. We're trying to either play a mana dork turn 1 or play a new creature or 2 new creatures in an Unfathomable turn 2 to cast Gwiber afterwards, which is not difficult to accomplish with all the card draw in this deck, all the deck manipulation. It doesn't seem like, I guess when I say in this deck, I mean with our ruler, because our deck doesn't have a ton of card draw, obviously, but between Morgana, Cheshire Cat, and Reflect's draw ability, this deck really just gets through itself and finds the cards it needs very easily. So that's really what our game to do. We're trying to play a Gwiber on turn 2 and then Alice's World on turn 3. Next we have 4 copies of Change the World, or Evolution. Change the World both lets us draw cards and put extra counters on Reflect so that we can get to our tutor ability quicker. And it's just a Regalia to fill the requirement for Ruler's Memoria. We also have 4 copies of Leviathan in this deck. Leviathan is a A card that really helps us go a little bit faster. Extra copies will clear the colorless mana that we need to cast Alice's World, if there's any extra on there, as well as letting us tap, reflect, or refrain to search for a card the turn that we flip her, which gives us a whole turn extra on our clock. Like we move a full turn quicker. Then we have the important card in the deck, really, the combo card. 4 copies of Alice's World. Alice's World costs 8 mana, it costs 1 less for each different type of creature we have in play, and it loses the cost reduction if the creature types overlap. So in our deck we have a dragon, a Cthulhu / 12 Apostles, but they don't overlap at all, a Knight of the Round Table, a Fairy Tale, a Story / Human, a Fairy, and an Elf. So we have 7 different creature types. So our goal is going to be to get roughly 6 of these in play, and play this for 2 mana. The reason these elves and sprites are so important is that they basically count for 2, though. So if we have both these guys in play, yes, they are reducing the cost by 1 each, but they also are going to tap to produce mana to play the colorless cost as well. So it's easy when you have these guys in play to go off on turn 3 with Alice's World. And just to illustrate that, let's say our line of play something like turn 1 Elvish Priest, turn 2 we play Morgana, Cat, Gwiber. Now we have 4 different creatures in play. We're going to take our next turn, we'll go to 3 stones. So Alice's World is reduced by 4, and we can tap this for 1 mana, as well as our 3 stones, to just play this right off the bat. That's without playing any more resonators to reduce the cost further from that point. You can do the same exact thing with Wind Sprite. So it's just very important to have these mana dorks so that we can play our Alice's Worlds as early as possible. The last card in our deck is a single copy of Sendback. Originally this was actually the 4th Gwiber, but a friend convinced me to try Sendback because it gives me an extra turn off of Alice's World, since we can bounce the Alice's World back to our hand and play it again. And it's been pretty good. It also gives you the added utility of being able to clear a card on your opponent's board, since you can just tutor up with Reflect whenever you want to. So that's pretty sweet. It also makes it easier. You can burn a turn setting up a Gwiber once you're taking your extra turns, because you have 1 additional bonus turn with the Sendback. So it's sort of a wash in that category, though you could cut something else for the 4th Gwiber potentially, since you can really just win the game off a turn 2 Gwiber whether or not you take a million turns. But that's the list. The other things that I've considered, I used to have Gleipnirs in instead of Leviathans. Leviathan, whatever its name is actually. Gleipnir's okay. You can tap down something that would be difficult to swing through to make sure you kill your opponent in time. The reason I switched over was to get me a turn quicker on my searches from Reflect, as well as just producing an extra mana if I brick up on creatures for some reason. Gleipnir was okay, but I found that I very rarely was able to set up 1 in play with a copy in my hand, so the draw wasn't super relevant. Other cards that I played and had good success with, but I ended up shaving for more consistency and the mana dorks and stuff, were Alice's Scout and Familiar of Holy Wind. Both these cards have been very good for me. The Alice's Scout's giving me more draws off Unfathomable was great, and Familiar of just being an extra creature type and an easy to cast green creature to filter deeper into my deck instantly was all really, really strong. But again, eventually we just cut them for more redundancy, just powerful mana ramp, give us more turn 3 kills because the deck's card selection is so good already. And then finally, I've played both these cards before, both Horn of the Sacred Beast and Death Scythe. Because you can get them so early with Refrain search ability, you can shut off Reanimator and shut off a deck like Bahamut or Valentina from killing you as quickly, which is really good, but I think these are just better relegated to the sideboard. Unless you find that you're having too much trouble getting your Roller's Memorias into play untapped early, or if you're playing against a lot of Mary Bells, for instance, which I also have tried just to give myself an extra Regalia, though I ended up sticking with 8. But yeah, these are all cards you can play to get yourself a 9th Regalia to make sure your Roller's Memorias come into play untapped, but ultimately I've chosen all of them to be better cards in the sideboard than in the main, so I haven't really worried about it too much, though they are all fine choices. That's really all I have to say about the deck, though. I think that the lists most people play are pretty good. It's not a deck that needs a ton done to it. Another card, I can't remember the name of this card now, and I feel really bad about this. The card that untaps 2 of your stones and then makes them all tap for any color will you want. That card's okay in here. It digs you deeper into your deck for just literally free. So it's not a bad choice to play ever, but the fact that you need the 6 different resonator types in play to really make this deck work at full efficiency causes me to not like it that much. So, that's sort of a choice that you have to make on your own, whether you want to play a card like that. I don't think it's necessary. I think what this deck does this way is pretty strong already, which is weird for me to say because I really like playing draw cards whenever I can, especially free ones. If you've watched any of my Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh videos, my love of Gitaxian Probe and Upstart Goblin is pretty obvious. But just since our roller gets to do that every turn for free anyway, I don't worry about it as much in this deck. But yeah, I mean, this is a really strong deck. The only questionable choice in here in my eyes are the Leviathans, but I don't know. I'm going to test with them some more and see how they work out. There's plenty of other options. You do need to play, I think, 8 Regalia. I don't think you need any more than that, though some people would argue you need 9. To me, 8 is the perfect number. I've seen lists even playing 7. You also could play Artemis. Yeah, that's the name of the bow. In that slot if you wanted to slow down the aggro decks, but so far it seems to me that if both me and the aggro deck are just doing what our deck is built to do, I will win first. In the situation where they're burning their burn spells or using removal spells on my mana dorks to slow me down, that just means the game's going to drag out longer anyway, which I think still advantages me. So I would like to test that a little bit more before I really commit to that answer, but so far in the limited testing I've done, Artemis seems just very underwhelming in this deck, and both Gleipnir and Leviathan have tested better. So that's the deck. Obviously this is not an original by me. There have been plenty of other Alice's World builds, but I do think that the tweaks I've made have really helped the deck out, and I've been having a ton of fun and success playing it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. There will be plenty more forcible decks coming soon. I will try to do some decks that don't use Reflect and Refrain as the roller, since I know everyone will get tired of those very quickly since they are sort of the most popular decks right now. Let me know down below what other decks with the new rollers you guys are interested in seeing. I don't really feel like doing anything with the old rollers right now. Dark Alice is interesting. Valentina's kind of cut and dry, but still interesting. So let me know what you guys are thinking, what you're interested in down below in the comments. If you have questions about this deck, changes you want to make, piloting the deck, just anything you want, let me know down below. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. And other than that, thanks a ton for watching, guys. There will be lots more Forcible coming soon.